Hey guys, in this video I'm going to explain the second logic game from LSAT PrepTest 73, which is the September 2014 LSAT. This is the game where we have 5 speakers, each giving a speech in either the gold room or the rose room. So this game, I would set it up as an ordering game because they are in a certain order, but we've also got 2 different levels here. We have the gold level and the rose level. So I've laid out a diagram here as well as the rules, and I'll explain all of them. So we've got speeches occurring at 1 p.m., 2 p.m., and 3 p.m., and they're happening in both the gold room and the rose room. Of course, there are 5 people and 6 spaces here. We don't know whether the 3 p.m. speech will be in the gold or the rose, so I've left it open-ended, and I've placed a placeholder variable E for empty just in case we want to mark off which, if there's a slot, one of the 3 p.m.s that we know is going to be empty. Now, I've laid out the rules here, and I'll explain all of them. We've got the first rule that M is before L and in the same room. Of course, this means that L can never be on 1 p.m. and M can never be on 3 p.m. And I've diagrammed the rule itself as M before L, and I've boxed it just as a reminder that they're going to be horizontally together, meaning they're going to be on the same level, gold or rose. Next, we got the second rule, neither X nor Y is before Z. So I marked that rule down quite literally, just as a reminder. X does not occur before Z, Y does not occur before Z. And I've also diagrammed it as Z is before or equal to X and Y, meaning it occurs before them or at the same time as them. And of course, it can't occur at the same time as both, but it could occur before X and at the same time simultaneous with Y, or vice versa perhaps. So those are just a few possibilities. You could diagram it in both of those ways I've laid it out. You could pick only one, whichever you prefer, it's fine. The next rule, if L is gold, then X and Z are both R. So L gold, I've also noticed I've put M here just because if L is gold, then M is gold as well. And of course, M is always before L due to the first rule. So if M gold happens before L gold, then we're going to have X and Z both at R. I've also diagrammed the contrapositive of this rule. If X is not at R, that means X would be at G. If Z is not at R, that would mean it's at G as well. And then either of those things occurring would be sufficient to guarantee that M's rose occurs before L rose. So you don't have to diagram the contrapositive. I happen to think it could be useful, so I've laid it all out. That's all the rules for the game. And at this point, we can go ahead and jump into the questions, starting with number 8, which is a typical orientation question. So again, this is the sort of thing where the rules, we've diagrammed everything. We haven't made a ton of inferences. We just want to take one rule or inference at a time and check it against all 5 answer choices looking for violations. So we could take the very simple rule that M is before L and on the same level. So scanning through the choices here, we see that D violates it having L before M, and E violates it having them on different levels. So D and E are both gone for that reason. We could also check for violations of the rule that we can never have X or Y before Z. So let's check for violations there. We see in choice B that X is before Z. That's unacceptable, so B is gone. The other choices appear to be fine on that issue. And then we've got finally, if we have M gold and L gold with one before the other, X and Z both have to be at R. So looking at C, we've got L gold, but we do not have both X and Z at R. X is at G, that's unacceptable, so C is gone, leaving A as our answer for number 8. Next, number 9, which pair of speeches cannot be given simultaneously? So here you want to be looking, obviously you don't just want to have to run through all 5 answer choices. You want to think strategically. You want to think about variables where one of them has to occur relatively early and another one has to occur relatively late. So looking at that, we've got, X and Y, occurring relatively late and M occurring relatively early. However, X or Y, for all we know right now, maybe one of them would be first because it could be simultaneous with Z perhaps. So I wouldn't start there. What we know is more likely to be late is L, because L can't be first, as we know. We even marked that off. L has to be second at the earliest, and Z could not possibly be third, given that it has to be, it has to have at least one of X or Y coming after it. By the way, I could actually go ahead and just mark that down on our diagram, since I didn't do it before. So I'd be thinking about Z and L. And sure enough, B says Z and L. So why couldn't that work? Well, you can't have Z and L together on 1. You can't have them together on 3. The only place they might even go together would be 2. But if you had Z and L on 2, then you'd have to have both X and Y on 3. And we know that one of the spots on 3 is going to be empty. That's one of the initial rules of the game. One of the rooms, they say in the initial paragraph, one of the rooms yet to be determined will have a speech at 3. So that wouldn't work. So for that reason, B is impossible. We can't have both L and Z at the same time. And so B is our answer. By the way, if you are concerned that you would forget that you're going to have only one variable on in the third column and the other would be empty, you could diagram something like this. You could say, slash E, create a sort of, two different possibilities here. Either we have the empty on, gold 3, or you have the empty on, rows 3. Either, you could do it that way if you want to. I felt comfortable personally just remembering it, but that's totally up to you. It's just one way you could deal with it. Another way you could deal with it would be to make two different main diagrams, one with E on gold 3 and one with E on rows 3. That's another way that you could address this issue. I'll just leave it blank, but that's just something you could think about if you want. Next, number 10, if X was at 3 p.m., what could not be true? So this gives us two different main possibilities that we can lay out here. Either X will be on gold 3 or on rows 3. So I'll lay out those two different diagrams now. So X on gold activates the contrapositive of the final rule, where we're going to have M and L on rows, and of course M is before L. We can't have M and L on touching 3 at all because we can only have one person at 3 p.m. and that's X. So we're going to have M on rows 1 and L on rows 2. Then the remaining variables, Z and Y, will have to go on gold 1 and gold 2. The bottom diagram becomes a little bit more complicated because we could have ML maybe on gold on 1 and 2, or ML on rows maybe 1 and 2. So if we have X on rows, we have ML on gold, then we're going to have Z and Y coming on rows 1 and rows 2. In the bottom possibility, we're going to end up having, Z and Y going on 1 and 2 gold. So let's see if everything checks out. With the other rules, M and L are together on the same level, one before the other. X gold on the top diagram requires MR, LR, that's happening. So everything checks out. Let's take a look at the choices now. What cannot be true? L in the same room as Y. Checks out perfectly. In all three diagrams, L and Y are on different levels. They can't be in the same room, so we're totally good. A is our answer. Next, number 11, a complete and accurate list of speeches given in the gold room in that specific order. So we could actually just take the rules one at a time and run through them. M before L and on the same level. A obviously would be eliminated because that has L before M, and B could be eliminated because it mentions one of M, L, but not both of them, and the correct answer choice will either have to mention both of them or neither of them. So B's gone as well. The others are okay on that issue. going on to the next rule, we can never have X or Y occurring before Z. And so scanning through the choices there, we see that D has Y before Z. That's unacceptable, so D is gone. Now finally going on to the last rule, if M or G, or really both are on, M or L are on gold, M and L on gold, then we have to have X and Z on the other level, on R. And looking at choice E, we have L on gold, yet we also have Z on gold in choice E. That's unacceptable, so E is gone, leaving C as our answer for number 11. Next, number 12, if Y is at 1 p.m., then what could be true? So if Y is at 1 p.m., I've laid out two different main diagrams here, one with Y on gold, one with Y on rose. Now, of course, if Y is first, we're going to have Z with it, since Z can't occur after Y. Now, we activate a rule by doing that. If Z is on gold, then M and L both have to be at R. So I'll put them on R2 and R3 in the bottom diagram, and then we simply have the remaining variable X going on gold 2 since it can't go on gold 3 since we already have something on 3. So that's taken care of. The top diagram is a little bit more ambiguous. We're either going to have ML on gold, or we'll have ML on rose. We don't really know which way specifically it will go. And of course, then X will go on the second column in whichever space is still available. So those are the different possibilities that we have here. So they're asking us what could be true. Could L be on 1 gold? No, of course not. L can't be on 1 period ever. L on 2 rows? No. L is going to go on 3 at the earliest. Of course, it can only go on 3 either in gold or rose depending. So that's out. M on 2 in the gold room? Yeah, that could totally happen on the top diagram right here. M gold 2, L gold 3, and then X rose 2. Works out perfectly fine. So C is our answer. I'll quickly run through the others though. X 3 gold. No, X is going on 2 at the latest because we can only have one thing on 3 and that thing is going to be L. And then finally E, X on 1. No, there's no room for it at all, period. So C is our answer for 12. Finally, number 13. Now we have one of those dreaded rule substitutions that everyone seems to hate, but these really aren't so bad. You just look for something that is neither more restrictive than the original rule and neither less restrictive than the original rule. Something that would have exactly the same impact and change nothing. One technique that's really helpful for these a lot of the time is just to look back at previous valid scenarios so you could see whether the new rule would prohibit one of those or allow something that previously would not have been allowed. So let's just run through the choices here. Again, of course, this is regarding the second rule of the game, what would have the same impact exactly. So let's scan through the choices. L must be at 3. No, that actually wasn't even the case beforehand. We have examples where L was on 2, several examples like that, even including question 8, choice A, our correct answer there. So for that reason, A is gone from 13. Looking at B, M cannot be earlier than Z, so that would kind of take our diagramming of the second rule and say M before Z cannot occur, but it's really unclear how that would affect X and Y specifically. So I would eliminate that one, or at least strongly be biased against that being the answer. Next choice C, either X or Y must be after Z. That's really not strict enough because that would allow one of them to potentially go before Z, which certainly isn't permitted by the original rule. So C is gone. Looking at D, either X or Y or both must be at 2 p.m. That would still allow Z to be on 3, which we've inferred is not permitted, so D is gone as well, leaving E by elimination. And if you just wanted to kind of check through previous stuff to see whether that seems to make sense, you'll see that in every valid scenario, we've had z on 1. That has always happened in 8a, as well as every diagram that we've drawn. Z has ended up on 1, which just kind of helps to confirm a little bit that it would have the same effect and would not change anything at all. So that's the game.